and good morning. Welcome to Duality. I'm your host, Ash, and I am here on New Year's Eve of 2025. And yeah, so the topic is about following through for yourself. What does that look like? The follow through. This is a topic that's been like extremely relevant in my life, especially recently. Like, I mean, always, obviously, we got to follow through for ourselves. But this weekend and just like this week and just like conversations brought up and like, what does that look like, to show up for yourself essentially, to follow through. And, for example, for me today, I came from a long drive back from upstate yesterday and I had a lot to do to kind of prepare for this podcast in general. And I was originally going to do this podcast with somebody else, and then like a few different things kind of like fell through and moved around, and all of that was all fine and well. And I'm just like giggling to myself because after we had established the topic, I'm like, I can't not do this podcast. I can't, for multiple reasons. It's literally like follow through for yourself, and I'm like, I got to do that part, right? And honor my commitment because I made a commitment that I would continue to do this podcast once a month, and at the last Wednesday of every month. And I would like to end the year off strong like that, and because I actually want to do it, it's not like I don't. It's just being tired and having to move things around. I'm just grateful, you know, that sometimes you do your best and things are able to move around and people are able to meet you where you're at, such as moving the podcast back and like having different things, and there's grace with that, and I'm like super grateful for that. And then other times there's not, and that could be even harder to continue to show up for yourself when there isn't grace happening for you, when there isn't you know movement in the space, places, the people around you, when there's not an ability accessible to have grace. And for whatever reason that may be, um, that could be especially hard to show up for yourself because it's it's such a wide range, and it's such a general topic in a way of like even just saying the statement like following through, because it could be countless of topics. Um, for myself, like really what I want to bring up in this podcast in the end of the year, it's like, I could do a wrap up, New Year's resolution kind of episode and things like that. But it's like, for me, that none of that resonated. It's just more so like, as a person who tends to start many things. Like I'm absolutely an initiator in that way, like, very cardinal sign, very like, I'm going to do it. Whether I'm the pioneer of something or whether it's been done before, but I want to do it my own way. How I am in my natural state. Uh, but to be able to bring something to completion, is something that isn't always as easily done than starting something, for example. And I know a lot of people that I've spoke with about these topics, like, have similar experiences, and sometimes that could bring up just like unsettling feelings because you want to finish something, but then sometimes you're overwhelmed or it doesn't resonate with you anymore, or you're doing so many other things. But there's such an amazing sensation when you bring something to completion. Even if it's like when you close something out, like think about even when you like close out tabs on your phone, there's just like space for space to exist where no previous thoughts were there. There's no more expectations like of what you needed to look up or do or buy or research. It's all gone. You have a clean slate. And that sensation, is absolutely imprinted in those moments when, you complete a task. And especially for more neurodivergent people, like AKA people who have ADHD or any type of dopamine deficiency in their brains, it is a phenomenal thing to complete a task. Ironically, it's a really difficult thing to complete a task given the nature of, you know, kind of how our brains might operate a little differently. And the excitement, the chase of the dopamine leads you to start something new, to follow something, to follow through, to bring something to completion. Like it takes endurance, stamina, patience, ability to see and hold on to the goal at the end, and navigate the in between. Not to make it super astrological, but just to like touch base for anybody who's aware of the different signs, like fixed signs, like that's their thing, like sustainability, like being able to sustain um that in between that could look boring and can look mundane, and that lacks excitement. But it's like if no one does it, then no one does it. It doesn't get done, right? And with that being said, something that I look forward to gifting myself and those around me in this coming year is like that, just more of that. It's not that I don't follow through with things, because I certainly do. I just come to a space where I've identified the fact that on some level, doing so many things at once is, I think it'll always exist in a certain degree in my life, but the actual extent of how much one person can actually do and how many pots they can put their hands in before it's like you're forgetting what's cooking in the first pot. Um, so for me, it's a year of consolidation and following through. And what that looks like is really like honing in that focus, because sometimes, excitement and desire to do a bunch of different things can like low key be distraction and a protection and coping mechanism for you to excel in one or two. And that's kind of a hard pill to swallow at times. I know it certainly was for me, but at the same token, it was also like really enlightening, because it showed me my own blind spot of like my I don't lack creativity and thoughts, ideas. In fact, I have so many. I would love to gift them to people all the time. And we do brainstorming sessions. I'm like, here, take some of that, keep that for you, go build that. I can't do it. I can't do it all. Um, but to have that kind of mind, uh, it's it's exciting, it's fun, but it's just not realistic to be starting something new all the time. So like finding that balance in what is the most important and feels the most resonant right now, whether that be a quarter of the year, a week, a day, a minute, a moment, the whole year, whatever the timeline feels appropriate for whatever the thing is, to actually measure and do it rather than like, just winging it, doing it last minute, wait until the last second to do it, still getting it done. Impressive. But my nervous system is desperately asking for a change, because, you know, to wait for the last minute, like clearly I'm good under pressure. That's established. And anybody that resonates with what I'm saying, I'm sure you established that at some point. We're good under pressure. Cool. Do we need to be under pressure our entire life? Because, um, that amount of pressure builds up. So rather than having unnecessary stress, I'm not saying creating a schedule for every little thing in your entire life, but like trying something different and going about it in a way that might be more gentle on your nervous system. That might feel more grounded, more chosen, selected with time and space, rather than thrown together. Because listen, I'm not opposed to those meals that you kind of like whip up when you don't know what you have left. You barely have anything in the pantry or the fridge, and you just make some kind of meal like work. And it just like slaps, and it's like really good, and it's some weird combo, but you figured it out. And like I'm all for that energy, like very much so. Simultaneously, like there's nothing like knowing exactly what you want to eat, what you want to taste, the flavors, how you want the plate to look like. Getting, maybe having the time to go to the farmer's market, getting really good, meat and veggies, cleaning that up, taking that time, and giving yourself exactly what you wanted and the way that you envisioned it is also that holds a lot of power. I feel like that gets slept on sometimes. The same way like fixed signs or earth signs can get slept on sometimes, because I feel like that is also like very much so the energy and the speed of those two different dynamics, and for the non, astrological people, even if you look at it like type A, like, like there's a lot of like negativity that gets said about type A people, but at the same token, like you know what you're getting to a degree, so it's less it's more calming on the nervous system in a way, because you know what to expect, so it becomes consistent is the word I'm looking for. It's consistent. um it's cool to throw things in, it's cool to like be like, you know what, I've made this, salad the same way this time, on different veggies in season. I'm gonna throw that in, make it a little bit different, but it's like it's consistent that you've been making that salad, and so now you feel confident to build on it, to throw something into the mix rather than just like completely going for something new and grabbing from all different directions, and sometimes it hits and sometimes it doesn't, and then you learn, okay, those ingredients don't really work together, or these ingredients do, or that amount of time to cook this thing works, or this doesn't. This pan works, this don't, and I'm relating it to food because it's just something we can all literally figuratively maybe digest a little more when we're talking about this topic of like actually following through with something that you've been thinking about and setting aside for, rather than just kind of doing things on a whim, or like just throwing it together. There's power in both. I think that for me, I'm just looking more so to balance it, not stop doing the impromptu experiences, but also just build within myself. Because it's like if you create a consistency of something, you're you're trusting within yourself to provide. And although for me in my year, I've certainly done that in a very big way with many things, and I'm just looking to pivot that and continue that in a more in like a deeper light in a deeper layer, if that makes sense. It's like something I think is very important to pay attention to when we're on this journey of life, or moments of self reflection. I think it's important to also think about when you're revisited with a lesson that you feel like you might have already endured, looked over, worked through, integrated, whatever the case is. Sometimes it could be like, why is this coming back up? It could almost feel offensive. Like how much work do I need to do on this one thing? But kind of pivoting, and something that me and Bree talked about in the last episode is like, rather than looking at it with judgment and being super critical, like pivoting and looking at it with curiosity through the eyes of like, oh, why? Like, maybe I'm getting an opportunity to really bring that lesson in deeper. Bring that knowing in deeper. It doesn't mean that you don't know. It just means that you're going to have a deeper way to apply it. And I think that, our pride, our ego, kind of gets in the way of that, and having those kinds of conversations, whether in our head with ourselves or with other people. And, because when you revisit something, it's been told societally that, like, you're not over it. And, in a way, maybe that is a little bit true, but also if we reframe the wording and we feel into the sensation of, I just broke through and got through to a deeper layer in this onion. Like, it's all an onion. It's all the same aspect of, like, it's all me. It's all my systems, that have been created for one reason or another within what it is to experience life through my eyes, through your eyes, through their eyes. Like, it's a nudge to feel that much closer to yourself, in my opinion. I think it's something that should be encouraged and celebrated rather than feeling embarrassed or ashamed or disheartened because you've been driving around town for a long time and then you ended up on the same block, and it feels like, oh, that feeling of, oh man, like, I'm going in circles. And it's like, maybe it's not a circle, maybe it's a spiral. You know what I mean? Because, like, healing isn't linear, and it looks different and it looks the same all at once. We can't determine what our healing is gonna look like from a Deepak Chopra book, or no offense to him, but it's just like just anybody, like any of the self-help people or whatever. Like, we can use those books and appreciate that person's insight, but it's still coming from their lens, and that's not your lens. So therefore, it's there as a tool to prompt, your own inquisitive nature within your being, and to understand your organism as a human, as a soul, and everything in between. But things aren't concrete and written in stone. Everything is relative. And I think that sensation of everything being relative is uncomfortable, because then people don't feel like they have control, because that isn't consistent. But there is consistency. The consistency is, it's inconsistent because of the nature of everyone being different, simultaneously everyone having commonalities, similarities. And it shows up when you look at the fabric of everything in the world. Everything in nature is going to have differences and similarities. Everything alive in the world, and even if it's not alive and it's an inanimate object, you can still find commonalities when you break it down to the electrons and the atoms. And you can still, the fact that things are matter, and the same atoms that built this table are that I have within myself. So to kind of ground everything that I'm talking about, because we're getting real worldly over here, but micro and macro, but following through for yourself. We can be prompted to follow through for other people, and that's a beautiful thing. You're showing that you love that person. You're showing that you're loyal to the commitment or the conversations that you had, that you're a safe person. You can honor your word, And then there's the importance of showing up for ourselves. And the more, if you're prompted more from the external and you notice that about yourself, think about it like this. If you show up and you follow through for yourself, you have more of a capability and ability to show up for others through taking care of yourself. constantly when I speak to my friends, my relatives, my family members, like, and it's a burnt out mother, not being able or not feeling like they're able to take care of themselves, or not having circumstances where they're supported or encouraged in taking care of themselves, and or it just doesn't seem possible, feasible, or prioritized. I always do my best to, like, listen, of course, and then if any advice is warranted and or asked for in regards of any feedback, like, I always like to encourage, whether it's moms or dads or whoever, like, you can take care of more people when you take care of yourself. Like, the more you follow through and you follow up with yourself, the more people you could actually help. The more you don't follow through for yourself and the less you show up for yourself, take care of yourself in certain degrees, like, it builds up, and then you're not able to take care of anyone, including yourself, or you're only able to take care of yourself because of the circumstances in which your organism, aka our intelligent bodies, minds, souls, configured a situation where maybe you got a headache and you can't leave your house. Maybe you got a head cold or whatever the case is, because it's like, bitch, you're not listening like in any other way. So I'm just gonna have to knock you on your ass. Like, and like, absolutely have been there many of times, have learned that lesson many of times. I'm sure I will learn that lesson for the rest of my life as a recalibration, and get more and more intimate with that cycle and go deeper and deeper into the layers of the onion of what it is to take care of myself. So I am not exempt to any of the things that I'm talking about, not only here, but on any of the podcast episodes. I'm not your guru. I'm a person figuring it out at the same time that you are. I just happen to have a microphone in front of me at the moment, you know? So, and for whatever reason, life circumstances set me up to have this conversation in this way. Here we are, I got moved all the time in school because I couldn't shut up. So I guess it's for a reason, you know. Um, this is how I'm following through for myself with figuring what that means, and how that looks like. And the pod especially, man, like, it's been an opportunity and an experience for me to really follow through and follow up with myself, like, check in with myself, check in with y'all, because it's like, I even when I do podcasts on my own, the way my brain works and how I kind of experience and articulate, process what I want to talk about, comes from an accumulation of different things, and like some being like the most recent conversations I've had. So like, these conversations, even when I'm not talking to somebody, are influenced by each and every person that I've been talking to for the past week, for all of my family, my relatives upstate, for, anybody I talked to on the phone coming downstate, like, for anybody that I was on the phone with that I spent time with from, just any of the recent time right now, from last night to whatever. And then also the life compounded experiences and conversations I've had with others. So it's like, my point of bringing that up is like, if you're here and you're listening to this, there's some kind of relevance, I'm sure, that you would find, or that pulls you here to listen to it in any way, shape, or form, or else you wouldn't be here listening to it. And I don't look at it from the lens of just solely my experience, that when I'm speaking on these things, it's like collective experiences and things that I've had the pleasure to and or honor to hear from the people around me, So yeah, I just feel that it is so important to prioritize ourselves. It's absolutely crucial, actually, to our literal survival, scientifically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Whatever floats your boat, you'll find all routes lead to you need to take care of yourself. Um, so like we should probably do that, you know? Like, we should probably do that and continue to find cool new ways to do that. And um that's what I'm trying to encourage in my world, my I just paused because I was just editing the podcast from last episode with Bree, which was amazing. And I said my world in like two clips. So when I said it, it just kind of like brought me back. Whatever. That's ADHD. We can leave those thoughts. Anyway, to bring it back, just finding the different ways to, you know, yes, motivations to get up to do it and remembering our why once again, like why are we doing what we're doing when you're tired or you're doing all like why are you doing it? Like why do you want to do those things? Those are great questions to ask yourself because that's where you can start to see and determine like what's even worth you completely following through and putting your energy and time into, as opposed to maybe closing some of those tabs out and closing some of those experiences out. Maybe those projects that you had, you can set aside or sell or give away or donate. And you know maybe somebody else is really looking to focus on that one particular thing. You can make their day, make their life, give that encouragement and that motivation for them to continue to fuel their organism and support themselves on multiple levels and multiple realms. You don't realize how much, not you don't, like I'm not gonna tell you what you do and you don't, but sometimes we may not realize the actual impact we have on people as a person. On the flip side, we can also think we have more of an impact than we do, because we're human beings and we test limits just like children. We don't really grow out of that. Just looks different, gets a little smarter, more manipulative. But it's still impressive the way the brain works and how we go about finding, because ultimately when you boil any of it down, it's really survival. um is it necessary survival? Like, no, we're not hunter gathering and like having to figure it out in that bare way, but it is to want to function, want to support ourselves, want to live at the bare minimum. Like, our brains are constantly trying to keep us alive. Our bodies are constantly trying to keep us alive, and that can support and or hinder a follow through. And that's why it's so important to navigate the emotions that come up in those processes, the sensations, to give space to them, not linger, but not repress them. It's absolutely imperative to, once again, not storing and suffering or not deflecting and neglecting, you know? So I hope that whatever you're thinking about, today or whenever you listen to this, but if you're listening to it specifically today or on any other New Year's Eve, I hope that you find realistic things that you get to follow through for yourself with. Like, you know, um, maybe start small, one foot in front of the other, one step at a time. And, that sounds cliche, and every person older than you probably said that to you your whole life. And you're like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to do it different because I'm different. And I'm going to make it happen expedited because I'm clearly much smarter than everyone and anything before me, right? We have these thoughts, and, sometimes they're right. And sometimes you start something, you're absolutely amazing at it. Sometimes you don't. And then that's when you have to eat that and learn and sit with that and see if it's worthy, and or if you have the actual discipline and ability to dedicate yourself in time to actually get good at something. So maybe getting good at showing up for yourself and following through could be something that's on the agenda, you know? And I hope that whatever you choose to do today to wrap up your year, tomorrow to start your year, even though this is the more societally forced new year, and it really actually makes a lot more sense that the new year would start in the spring, but that's a whole other conversation. But it really is the natural new year, but whatever, we're gonna leave that. Finding ways to meet yourself where you're at and gift yourself your presence, in determining what can support your life. And if that looks like a year, if that looks like a month, if that looks like an hour or a minute, depending on your circumstances, like it might be a good time to like really take that self inventory. You know I'll be doing that today. And as much as there's so much pressure to go and celebrate and be out and be around a lot of people, you also don't worry if you don't feel moved to do that. We're like in the dead of the winter. Like, this is the time that we like hibernate and, you know, kind of really go inward, to kind of regenerate in a way, and ponder and move. Well, not move exactly, but make moves to move, if that makes more sense. Because it's a slower paced season, regardless of the climate. It's just the energetic feel of this year. It's planning time, you know? And we can take a page out of the book of those fixed signs, of those earth signs, of those type A people. Because we can't just be fucking rogue all the time. I have a lot of experience in that, you know? It's pretty turbulent to the nervous system. So, but then also too much stability is as well. So I'm not you, you're not me, but we also kind of are, right? In some kind of way. But maybe find out what your percentage is of what to gift yourself that, to really find that. I know I'm going to do that to the best of my ability. Just like, today I showed up in best of my ability. Is it 12 p.m.? It's probably closer to 1 now, but we did it. We made it. We pulled all the clips. We did all the things. We made the flyer, you know. So I'm going to give myself a pan de bono after this. I forgot to bring that, but that's okay. Because we just meet ourselves in each moment and do the best that we can do for ourselves there. And we don't need to be stressing ourselves out any more than everything has been designed to kind of do that, So with that being said, I just want to say Happy New Year to everybody. I hope that whatever you're looking to leave behind in 2025, it has a smooth transition and integration into wherever it needs to go, and any parts of you that you need to call in to and create more of in 2026 is easily accessible, or maybe not easily, but I hope the process is easeful and that you're met with grace and discipline and deservance of all the things that you would like to build in your life, because you do deserve it. If you think about it and you desire it, and it's something that aligns with you and supports not only you, but other people around you in a good way, why not? We're so harsh on ourselves sometimes, and I find the best people in the world that have such incredible ideas that could really help so many people sometimes just stunt themselves because of these things that we're talking about here today. So I encourage you all to listen to yourself, pay attention to what's going on around you, because it's just another version of what's going on within you. And you already know that. I'm just here to remind you. So I'll see y'all next year. I'm going to be corny like that, respectfully. And last Wednesday of January. Enjoy your night and see you later.